All right. Okay, we'll call tonight's meeting to order. This meeting is being held in the council chambers, which are open for public attendance and participation. The meeting will also be live streamed for public viewing, but not participation at the link identified in the agenda. Emailed comments sent and received by the city clerk at least 24 hours before the meeting were distributed to the city council prior to tonight's meeting. Can I have roll call, please?
Mayor Shaw.
Here.
Vice Mayor Boomgarden.
Here.
Councilmember Cole. Councilmember Kirchner.
Here.
Councilmember Pasquale.
Here.
Thank you. If you will please stand, our invocation will be given tonight by Pastor Dan Callahan from Legacy Baptist Church, and that will be followed by the pledge led by Councilmember Pasquale.
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we come before you with presence and humility to honor what you've given to us in our hands. And Lord, I pray that you would just bless each and every person here. We pray that you would help guide and direct our county, our city, our state, Lord, in these public service areas. We pray that this meeting would not just simply be a meeting of decisions, but we would gather wholly guided by you. We pray that you give each person on this board and in this room the wisdom, the vision to move the city forward in your will and your way. Lord, we pray that you would be with our first responders and their families, protect them, especially as they enter into harm's way each and every day. Lord, we pray that you would protect our city, our county, our state, that you would provide the protection and resources that we need to make this a better and safer place for years to come. In Christ's name, amen.
Okay. We did not have a closed session tonight, so we do not have anything to report out. Is there any agenda modifications for this evening? Seeing none from the council, we're going to move on to agenda item 1. Public communication, appearance of citizens. You are welcome and encouraged to participate in this meeting. Public comment is taken on action items appearing on the consent calendar or business items on the agenda when they are called. Public comment on any other items within the scope of the city's jurisdiction, including items not listed on the agenda, will be considered at this time. Public comment is limited to 3 minutes per speaker, and members of the public submitting written requests at least 24 hours prior to the meeting will have an allotted 5 minutes to comment per speaker. Repetitive comments may be limited, and large groups are encouraged to select representatives to express their opinions of the group. Do we have any comments from the public this evening? Any comments from the public? Seeing none, we're going to move on to the consent calendar. All matters are listed under consent calendar, are considered to be routine and can be enacted in one motion. There'll be no separate discussion of these items prior to the time the council votes on the motion unless members of the council request specific items be discussed or removed from the consent calendar for individual action. Do we have any comments from the public on consent calendar items 2, 3, and 4? Any comments from the public? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the council for comments or action.
Through the mayor,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion to accept item 2, 3, and 4 on the consent calendar.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and I have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Ayes have it. Motion carries. Moving right along to business items. First item up is the presentation and adoption of the Fire Hazard Zone Severity Zone Ordinance presented by our own Chief Alexander. Chief, you have the floor.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Tonight, I'm here to talk to you about fire hazard severity zones. And what that is areas identified by the state fire marshal that outline in California, moderate, high, and very high areas based upon statewide criteria per California government code. It's broken into 2 big categories. Your state responsibility area, which is basically a legal term defining the area where the state has financial responsibility for wildland fire protection and prevention, and also your local responsibility area, the LRA area, which basically includes incorporated cities, urban regions, agricultural lands where local government is responsible for wildfire protection. So a little bit of history that goes along with this. Back in 1982, the Public Resource Code mandated that CAL FIRE establish fire hazards maps for state responsibility areas. And in 3 years later, they completed those maps and sent those out. However, in 1991, we had the Tunnels Fire or Oakland Hills Fire where Vice Mayor Boomgarden was at. They had 2,900 structures that were destroyed during that incident. As a result of that, the Bates Bill was created that required CAL FIRE to identify very high fire severity zones in local response areas. 15 years later, CAL FIRE finalized those statewide model maps to include very high in the LRA area. However, in 2017, we had the Tubbs Fire in Santa Rosa that destroyed 5,600 homes. And in 2018, we had the Camp Fire in Paradise, which is still the most deadliest and destructive fire in California's history, at 18,800 structures destroyed and 85 fatalities. As a result of those fires, Assembly Bill and Senate Bill required CAL FIRE to identify not only the very high, but also the moderate and high fire zones in the LRA area. In 2022, another Assembly bill required local agencies to designate those through an ordinance on those moderate and high. And then that takes us where we are today. At February 10th in 2025, they updated the fire hazard severity maps for the LRA that were released. So looking at these maps, before I go to the next page, please keep in mind when we're looking at the maps that were released, yellow is for moderate, orange is for high, and red is for very high. And as you can see here in the Yuba City area, we do have some areas that were identified in the moderate category. That's in your southeast section of town. And then if we detail and zoom in a little bit more, this is along the river bottoms where we do have problematic areas in the Shanghai Bend, River Oaks area. Please do not dive into the maps, and it does not go parcel by parcel. These are very consistent maps with what you would think of with PSPS maps, the public safety power shutdowns. It's more generic and does not break it down by parcel. So one of the areas that I did struggle with when these were first being proposed about 2 years ago, these hazard maps evaluate hazard, not risk. And so that's something I have to continually process when I look at these, especially when I'm looking at a larger all of California on these maps. And a hazard is based on a physical conditions that create an expected fire behavior over a 50-year period without, that's the key component, without considering any short-term modifications. The risk models are the potential damage that a fire can do to an area under existing conditions, are including fuel reduction projects, defensible space, and ignition-resistant building construction. So as a firefighter, I look at those maps very differently and have to wrap my brain around the hazard versus risk. So the big question that's going to come from that is, how is that going to impact your insurance rates? Well, insurance companies use risk models, not hazard models. So risk models consider the susceptibility of a structure to damage from fire and other short-term factors that are not included in that hazard modeling. Risk models incorporate additional factors that change frequently from those from the CAL FIRE, while that one sustains for a long period of time. Further analysis of it as CAL FIRE, because that's going to be the question, how did they come up with these? CAL FIRE utilized multiple software applications that analyze slope, terrain, vegetation, fire history, and weather to determine these. The LRAs, because I asked repeatedly 2 years ago when this came out and was repeatedly responded to, LRAs cannot decrease the severity of the zones. However, they can propose to increase the severity. So we can't decrease them, but we can increase them. There should be no changes to the property owners identified in those moderate zones within Yuba City. The primary purpose is for the LRA to better identify and prepare areas for increased hazard severity. There should be no impact to the fire department's ISO rating on these. And the detailed maps have been posted on starting February 13th on the city's website under community, and also on the fire department's website under be prepared. And we've also done a social media post indicating that for the public. So going forward, the public access there needs to be public access to these maps within 30 days of the release, which we have accomplished. LRAs are required to adopt an ordinance identifying these fire hazard severity zones within 120 days of the release of the maps, which is why I'm here talking to you tonight. And then once those ordinances are adopted, we have 30 days to upload the copy of that ordinance onto the CAL FIRE portal. There should be no direct fiscal impact for adopting these uncodified ordinance on the fire hazard severity zones. Alternatives, do not approve an uncodified ordinance adopting the state's fire zones. Or the city could amend the maps to increase areas of moderate, high, and very high severity zones within the city limits. My recommendation is to conduct a public hearing on the fire hazard severity zones for LRA, and then to introduce by title an uncodified ordinance for the city council. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Chief. Is there any questions from the council?
I just have one. Thanks, Chief. I'm still trying to figure out why, since we are LRA, why we are mandated by CAL FIRE to adopt by ordinance, since they historically abandon anything or any responsibility for LRA. So maybe you can't answer that. Just hit me as I was reading this.
There's some things in here that I personally struggle with, and that is one of them. And as you also look at the maps, there's some components, especially as a former fire official, you will struggle with trying to interpret and understand why certain things are in place. I do not have an understanding of why we are obligated outside of the fact that it was mandated by state law that we do it.
So another example of no local control.
Especially when I would have liked to have been able to decrease some, because you will see some throughout the state were not as impacted as maybe some other areas, and we were prepped ahead of time that prepare your fire marshals that this will be a very controversial topic. And so, to the best of my knowledge, I think we're the first. I would also direct it to our city attorney. We might be the first ones bringing this before a council for adopting the ordinance that I'm aware of. I'm trying to get in front of it before it does get more controversial when it does hit other areas that have some high and very high areas outlined. So, yes, that is problematic.
I appreciate the data and the information, and don't hold you personally responsible.
Thank you.
Through the mayor?
Yes, sir.
The 91 fire, the Oakland Hills, I was literally coming out of the Cal-Washington game when the fire engines were coming up Piedmont. I thought to myself, I would not want this going on. I wouldn't want 100,000 people coming out of the stadium when this is going on. And coming back 2 or 3 weeks later, I could see why all hell broke loose. They were taking city firemen and trying to fight a forest fire. And I can see where this has gotten people on edge. And then, of course, the Santa Rosa thing happened. I can see the kind of the thought process here. I don't know the mechanism of why CAL FIRE is involved. But having actually lived through that, it was, and you've lived through many more than I have, but I could see that we were solely had our pants around our ankles when this happened in Oakland in 91. So I can see the value of it. I don't understand the logistics of it, but yeah, I'm not as adept in understanding these things as the Councilmember Boomgarden and yourself are, but I definitely can see the value of this, having seen it actually happen.
Yeah, and the way I look at it is the value is associated is for areas that are not being proactive and determining and really analyzing your areas of threat in your community. Like, okay, hey, if we're going to build a subdivision here and this is listed as very high, maybe we should analyze, are we going to change our building code requirements? Or maybe we should make this a fire-wise community. There's some components into it. And the area that we have identified here, I don't see a new larger subdivision going in there that could be impacted. It's already on our radar. As fire official, I take in weather patterns of the high risk weather. I don't necessarily see a strong wind pushing hard into the city from the east in that direction, things along those lines. So the benefit is for especially those areas that are not being proactive.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Kirchner, do you have anything? Mr. Chaffin, I have a question for you. It's more procedural. Since it's been brought to our attention that this could be highly controversial up and down the state, even though we're getting ahead of things and doing it and don't see any potential conflict at this time, we can take remedial steps in the future should it become highly controversial and we need to change the ordinance or do something. We can always take those actions, correct?
That's correct. So if you need to tweak this going forward, you certainly can do so. The only caveat is, under state law, we're limited from lightening the fire safety standard. We can, if we've identified areas in the cities that would be, let's say, moderate risk, we can certainly tweak our ordinance at that time to make sure that those areas are identified.
Okay, yeah, my question came back from the vice mayor's comments about local control, and this is where they're trying to push things off on districts without any say-so, and if we need to go back and amend this or something at a future date based upon other jurisdictions and actions with the state, we have that levity. Thank you. All right, nothing else from the council? All right, then we will go and have our public hearing. The public hearing regarding the presentation and adoption of the Fire Hazard Severity Zone Ordinance is now open. If there are any members of the public who would like to address the council on this issue, please provide your statement via public comment and state your name and address for the record. Do we have any comments from the public at this public hearing? Any comments from the public during this public hearing? Seeing no comments, I'm going to close the public hearing and bring this back to the council for action.
Through the mayor,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion to introduce by title only an uncodified ordinance of the City Council of the City of Yuba City adopting the fire hazard severity zone zoned by the state fire marshal for local responsibility areas as determined and recommended by the state fire marshal pursuant to California Assembly Bill number 211 and waive the first reading.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a first and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say nay. Ayes have it. Motion carries. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
All right, let's move on to agenda item 6, which is the COPS grant for fiscal year 24-25, recommended expenditures. And that would be our interim chief, Runyon.
Red light, okay. Okay, so this is, these are our recommended expenditures this year for the annual COPS grant, which is the Citizens Option for Public Safety Grant. We are given roughly $150,000 a year. It could usually gradually increases over the years. And the extra funds that, if we don't expend all those funds, they can be banked for additional years, which we have additional funds in that account. So this year, what we're looking to purchase for equipment for the department and patrol-related items, it's called a TrueNarc drug testing machine. It's a very pricey item, but it allows you to scan drugs that are seized without having to touch them, and it identifies them. The Narcotics Task Force already has one of these. It works great, and it just alleviates the ability of any risk of getting contaminated by drugs. We're looking at upgrading our drone program. We already have a drone program in operation. This one would just enhance those abilities. It's a better cameras, better imaging at night, so it's going to give us better abilities and expand that program. Our TCCC program, our Tactical Combat and Casualty Care program, adding a bleeding simulator is just another training aid to enhance our abilities in that area. Additional tourniquets for patrol. All officers carry them. They carry extras for themselves as well as citizens. Getting 6 additional rifles for our patrol staff. And the Motorola dual band radios, another high-priced item, but we're slowly working at upgrading that, our radio system to get in compliance with the state. In dispatch, we're just looking at some custom ear mold headsets. SWAT, same thing, additional headsets for operations. Evidence area, some bike rack storage, and the infrastructure improvement is just security camera display for our records division, which will allow them to see a lot of the cameras throughout the PD because they're usually the point of contact with people coming in and out of the building. So give them better viewing of the area. So the fiscal impact is $167,692 to account 277-43415. Authorize the finance director to make a supplemental budget appropriation for grant revenues to 227-43415 and for grant expenditures 146,627 to 2270, 69,201, and 21,065 to 2270-63,801. This includes a 10% contingency just based on the lack of formal bids at this time. No city matches required. So the alternatives would be to provide a different spending pass for this money. So the recommendation is to adopt a resolution authorizing receipt, allocation, and expenditure of the COPS grant and authorize the chief financial officer to make budget adjustments as necessary. Any questions?
Thank you, Chief. Is there any questions from the council? Okay. Seeing none, we will hold a public hearing for this. The public hearing regarding the California Citizens Option for Public Safety COPS Grant Fiscal Year 24-25 recommended expenditure is now open. If there are any members of the public who would like to address the council on this issue, please provide your statement via public comment and state your name and address for the record. Do we have any comments from the public? Do we have any comments from the public? Seeing none, we will move and close the public hearing and bring this back to council for action.
Through the mayor,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to move to adopt a resolution authorizing receipt, allocation, and expenditures of the fiscal year 2024-2025 State of California Citizens Option for Public Safety Grant, COPS grant, and authorize the city's chief financial officer to make budget adjustments as necessary.
No. Okay, and we have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Ayes have it, and motion carries. Thank you, Chief. Moving on to Agenda Item 7, which is the employment agreement, Interim Human Resource Director, and that is presented by our City Manager, Ms. Diane Langley.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So I'm bringing forward the item tonight to appoint Gina Rowland as the Interim Human Resources Director. Gina started out her human resources career here in Yuba City back in the 90s, and she has over 30 years of human resources experience. She's been the director most recently for Sutter County, and prior to that for Yolo County. And I just have to say, with this item and then also the next item related to the interim city manager, Gina is a retired CalPERS annuitant, and per CalPERS requirements, she can only make what the is on the posted salary schedule, which is what the previous human resources director made. Gina is doing this out of the kindness of her heart because she could definitely make more money elsewhere. And, this is part of Gina in terms of giving back to the community as well. And so at this point, I'd like to bring Gina up to introduce her to council. And then also if she could just briefly talk about her experience. And I can't thank Gina enough for taking on this assignment of Interim Human Resources Director. So Gina, if you could come up, please.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. So this truly is a full circle moment for me, should you approve this employment agreement. It was 31 years ago this month, actually, that I started my career at the City of Yuba City as an administrative technician. And I used the 5 years that I was here at the city, the 5 years that I was here gave me a solid foundation and knowledge that I was able to build on in the rest of my career in public service. I have done, so I ended my time at Yolo County as the Director of Human Resources. And that was probably for about 3 years before I moved on to Sutter County, where I was the Director of Human Resources there for about 5 years. I've led the full range and scope of human resources responsibilities from payroll, benefits, staff development and training, recruitment, classification, compensation, workers' comp, policies, procedures, you name it, labor relations, employee relations, handled, grievances, arbitrations. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. I'm really excited to be coming back to the City of Yuba City. Again, should you approve the employment agreement, and I look forward to serving the organization and its employees. So I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Any questions from the council?
With the approval of the agreement, Gina's start date will be next Monday, March 10th.
Okay. All right. All right, with that, we will see, do we have any comments from the public? Any comments from the public? Okay, seeing none, we'll bring it back to the council for action or comments.
Through the mayor.
Yes, sir.
Take action on A, of the employment agreement, interim human resource director, adopt a resolution approving an interim director of human resources employment agreement between the city of Yuba City and Gina Rowland, and adopt a resolution adopting Gina Rowland as the interim director of human resources.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a first and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Ayes have it. Motion carries. Gina, congratulations. Thank you for joining our team. So, all right, we will move to agenda item 8, which is the employment agreement for an interim city manager. This matter comes before us tonight as a matter that the council handles itself. We only have the opportunity to hire 2 individuals as the 5 that sat on the dais, and that is our city manager and that is our city attorney under the form of governance we have. This council has come together very well and been very nimble in this process to make sure that we vetted candidates that were before us and came up with what we thought was the best choice for the city at this particular time and place. And I want to say thank you to the city council and the vice mayor for handling the interviews while I was at our sister city. And thank you for letting me remote into that one. But we do work very well together. I will go ahead and mention that we are required to let you know and read aloud the rate of pay and all benefits. The employee shall be paid the rate of $106.01 per hour, which aligns with the hourly rate for the current city manager, and there are no other benefits. And with that, I would ask the vice mayor if he'd like to add any comments to this, since he handled the process while I was abroad.
Thanks. The interview process actually took all of us, and there was a very professional group of individuals who came before us, but clearly Robert, in our opinion, embodied the professionalism, regional respect, knowledge, native Yuba Cityan, heartfelt love for the city that I think had him definitely impress all of us. And I think we're quite fortunate to have him on board should we all approve this. Thanks.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Would either of the other council members like to make a comment or two before we move forward? Okay. With that, piggybacking off what the Vice Mayor said, I think that Robert Bendorf is absolutely the right person at the right time for the city of Yuba City to get us through the next transition. He brings a wealth of knowledge, wealth of experience. He knows our area and he loves this city. He's been ingrained in this area most of his life. And so with that, I would actually move to adopt a resolution approving the interim city manager employment agreement between the city of Yuba City and Robert Bendorf, and adopt a resolution appointing Robert Bendorf as interim city manager. Oh, forgot that. Yeah, you get it. Hey, is there any public comment? I just got ahead of myself. Any public comment? All right, we're good. I got there, Shannon. So back to where I made my motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and we have a second to appoint Robert Bendorf as our interim city manager. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Ayes have it. Motion carries. Mr. Bendorf, welcome to the city of Yuba City. Would you like to make any comments this evening?
Push the button, or did I? Is it working? All right. So let's see if I get this right. Mayor and members of the city council instead of board of supervisors. I did all right. Okay.
Still
I
Yuba,
just wanted to take just a quick minute and say thank you for the opportunity to serve the city. You know, I don't have the going back work experience in Yuba City as back as Gina does. But someday, I forget what day it was, but back in '82, I remember being sworn in by Sheriff Whitaker back in the day as a cadet with the Sutter County Sheriff's Office, which then evolved into a part-time dispatcher role while I was still a cadet, but actually getting minimum wage and getting some money in my pocket that mom and dad wouldn't give me. But I really enjoyed my time. Obviously, being a Yuba City High graduate, and my kids as well, my father as well. Yuba City means a lot to me, and it is an absolute pleasure and honor. All the work from myself and my wife, our support for nonprofits and those things are always here and in the Yuba Sutter area, and that means a lot to us. And I, again, appreciate the chance to sit in the seat. I know I have really big shoes to fill with Diana. I've had the pleasure of working with her and several members of your staff, and I couldn't be more pleased at the opportunity. So I just want to say thank you, and hopefully for a few months I can live up to whatever expectations you may have. So thank you.
Thank you, Robert, and congratulations, and thank you for coming on board. Welcome to the team. All right, we will move right on down to agenda item 9, which is the California Department of Transportation proposal for improvements on State Route 20 at Humphrey Road. And Ms. Langley, you have the floor.
Thank you. This is one of those items that, Ben and I had to flip a coin as to who was going to cover this. He's letting me entertain my engineer heart in terms of bringing this forward. So the item tonight is the Caltrans proposal for improvements on State Route 20 at Humphrey Road. The question may be asked, why is Yuba City City Council considering improvements on Highway 20 at Humphrey Road since it is outside the city limits? However, as elected officials that serve the residents of Yuba City, you often get questions related to items that aren't necessarily within the city but do impact city residents. And so based upon this, council requested that this item come forward. Caltrans is hosting a workshop tomorrow night at Sutter High School where they're presenting information related to their proposed improvements. So if you go to Caltrans's website related to this project, they will note that between January 1st, 2017 and December 31st, 2021, the intersection of State Route 20 and Humphrey Road had 13 collisions. 11 collisions were categorized as broadside or sideswipe incidents, which can be mitigated with a roundabout, which is one of the reasons that they're focusing on a roundabout at this location. They've programmed $8,535,000 into the SHOP program to install improvements at that intersection. As I noted, they are conducting a workshop tomorrow night. The two items that they've specifically put up for discussion are a roundabout or a traffic signal. So here's the Highway 20 Humphrey Road intersection. I think one of the reasons that this is attractive from a roundabout perspective, and I know this community isn't typically very supportive of roundabouts, but if you're looking on the state highway system, this is a good location for a roundabout because you have one lane each direction entering on the actual state highway system, and then you have the side street, which is pretty low traffic volume. Roundabout, as noted with the accidents, will mitigate a lot of these collisions that were occurring. With a traffic signal, while a traffic signal will help, it doesn't necessarily mitigate these types of collisions. And with a traffic signal, fog plays an impact in the driver's ability to navigate the intersection and ability to see the traffic signal. So for the roundabout naysayers out there, I understand the naysaying, but from a truly engineering perspective, I recognize and understand why Caltrans is recommending a roundabout at this location. If you take a step back and look, you can see that it's further to the east, that Highway 20 actually splits into 2 lanes each direction. This is from Google Maps Street View. If you're looking west on Highway 20, there's the south leg of Humphrey Road. And then if you're looking to the east towards Yuba City, there's the north leg of Humphrey Road. So again, even though this is outside the city of Yuba City, wanted to give the council the opportunity to provide feedback to Caltrans. One of the other things that city council members often receive questions about is why isn't Caltrans programming improvements at other locations within the city? One of which would be the El Margarita Highway 20 intersection. And Chief Runyon is running accident data for the same time frame so that we can compare that data to the Humphrey Road intersection. In previous discussions with Caltrans staff, they don't have funding programmed for Highway 20. I think one of the expectations is because that intersection at El Margarita is within the city and it's city development that has occurred, that the expectation is that Yuba City is going to contribute towards the improvements at El Margarita and Highway 20. And in fact, we have some projects conditioned to do so in the future. But in the meantime, I know that you consistently get pinged with questions of what are you doing now? In terms of the Humphrey Highway 20 intersection, there's no impact to the city. Alternatives for council tonight is you could not provide feedback to Caltrans, or you could direct staff to submit a letter to Caltrans regarding considerations of requested improvements along State Highway 20 or 99 in Yuba City. And with that, the recommendation is to consider Caltrans's proposal for the Highway 20 Humphrey Road intersection and provide direction to staff as to would you like to provide formal feedback related to that intersection improvement or other improvements within the city on the state highway system.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Langley. Is there any questions from the council before I go to public comment? Okay. All right. Is there any public comment on this item tonight? Any public comment on this item tonight? All right, hearing none, just rumbles over here from our guys in the corner. So I'll bring it back to council for discussion and then direction. So,
Through the mayor.
Yes, sir.
Having lived here as long as I have, that neck down heading west on 20, the last quarter mile is a drag strip for the people trying to beat the other people to that one lane. Are they planning on making that 2 lanes all the way out to the bridge, or are they going to neck it down that fast because it gets real hairy out there with people speeding in a roundabout? I mean that's going to be something not very easy to navigate, especially when they're drag racing to get that one car ahead because somebody's towing something. So that would be my concern with I guess I should go tomorrow night to Sutter and see what the proposal is. Okay.
Okay.
All right. I've answered my own question.
All right, any other comments?
Through the mayor.
Yes, sir.
The last time this topic came up in this community, it was specifically angled towards 99 and Oswald with all the challenges that we've had out there. And my understanding was the community's, specifically the conversation was about a roundabout because that was the recommendation, but folks just lost their minds over it, and I'll admit I was one of those individuals that was concerned about that until I was driving from Phoenix, Arizona out to Sedona, and this is a state highway, and there's a series of roundabouts. And what's interesting about these is, to Mike's point, they act as a traffic calming measure. If you get on 99 and head towards Sacramento, it's NASCAR. And we have to get out of that mentality. It keeps traffic flowing. Hopefully it'll save lives. It's my understanding from an engineering point of view, it is the more expensive option versus a traffic light. But I think at least in this area, it is needed. But to the question of submitting a letter, I do have concerns closer down towards El Margarita and 20, and what specifically Caltrans plans moving forward to do about that.
Okay. Mr. Vice Mayor.
This might go on for a bit. So I really don't want to get in a position of commenting on this positively or negatively. I mean, it's outside of the city. Yes, it impacts the city. And I suppose if I want to go as a citizen tomorrow night to the meeting, well, I might join Mike there and raise my concerns, because I do agree with what he just said, which is when you have two vehicles trying to race to get to the roundabout, it's definitely, I think, is going to potentially cause some grief. My concern more along the lines of our intersection, which is further to the east, which is El Margarita and Highway 20. And the reason for that is that's an intersection in my experience, which is pretty much uncontrolled, but also involves heavy traffic at times from our high school. Folks trying to get to the high school and running through an uncontrolled intersection. And we all know that that is not necessarily the most safe way to do things. I would never ask Caltrans to go ahead and open up northbound on-ramp to El Margarita, but I think it's incumbent upon us to continue to pursue some sort of traffic control at the intersection of Highway 20 and El Margarita. I do know that there has been some discussions. I was fortunate enough to have our Community Development Director, Ben Moody, accompany me down to SACOG last week, where they were graciously allowed us to ask them some questions based upon their expertise, seeking some help from them in regards to potential items that might be able to be expedited to control that intersection. It's my goal before I leave office to have something planned for that intersection. I don't know if we're going to be able to accommodate that, but my worst nightmare is we're going to have a resident that's going into El Margarita, or heaven forbid, a student coming either east or westbound on Highway 20 and turning on to El Margarita and getting T-boned. If this is a concern at Humphrey, which I don't know has the same level of trips east, north and south on a daily basis that El Margarita does, based upon traffic from the high school and the commercial area over there, that to me is that's going to pique my old prevention piece, which is I'd rather prevent it before it happens than have to be subject to the law of catastrophic reform and have to be responding to a catastrophe. I do sense that SACOG is interested in this. I don't know if Mr. Moody wants to step up and talk a little bit more about some of the programs that we learned about. None of those are in play for us at this time. However, they do have a relationship with Caltrans District 3. I'd be very interested in this council sending something formal to the state, to the District 3 Caltrans folks, indicating our very high interest in getting this in the same level of planning as this Humphrey Road intersection. So I don't know, Ben, if you want to talk about some of the things that we discussed down in Sacramento.
Just to add to it is that there is some local STIP money that's coming to the county that we can look at, and then also use SACOG to help leverage. So Caltrans comes to the table. As Diana mentioned, there is this feeling from Caltrans that it's a city problem, it's a city development problem, and not to be a player. And so how to leverage that, sitting at the table with the messaging, I think you're spot on that. Some of that goes a long way, and then it also starts with the application process to get it discussed. So, but there is some money programmed in the CIP to start an application process, and then I think that's spot on to continue that engagement with SACOG that, hey, this is a priority for us, and if this signal, if this location is important, this one is just as important.
Thank you.
All right, thank you both. When this came up, in my opinion, this is an opportunity for us for exactly what the Vice Mayor just said. Caltrans has been in our area and looked at projects now to the west and then previously to the south and even actually to the north, because they looked at where Live Oak Boulevard came in at the junction up there. but yet Caltrans continues to ignore the accident that's waiting to happen right here in our own backyard. Meeting with the residents out there in the District 2 area, it's been brought to light that we have kids that are jumping that fence and cutting across there to get to school and everything else and going across the road. So we really need to look, not only at the accident detail, but really need to look at what's going on with the kids and the traffic and everything, because we may or may not have had as many accidents there, but we have a greater potential. So whether or not we use this as a doorway, and getting back to what you were talking about with roundabout versus thing, me, I'm a naysayer. I hate roundabouts. The only thing they're good for is, in my opinion, is the little neighborhoods where you can take the little kids and drive in a circle at about 20 miles an hour and they go, wee. That's my impression of roundabouts. That's really up to them, but I think we have a doorway in here to ask Caltrans very poignantly, why are you looking all the way around Yuba City, but yet you're failing to look at the one main issue that's on your highway in town? So I concur. I think we should send to whomever, whether it's maybe to all of them, SACOG, District 3, the governor's office, whoever we need to send this to start this process. So.
SACOG's engaged based upon and we're just waiting to get information back. They suggested waiting a little bit before we go a level higher to, say, Assemblyman Gallagher or somebody like that. Let's work through this process that we have going with SACOG. Yeah, I don't want to get into competing. Personally, I don't want to get into competing projects. If this is something that is needed out there, so be it. I would hate to say no. But, mine isn't to do this instead of that. Mine is, we need to do this. Help us do this, Caltrans.
Yeah, no, I agree. It wasn't don't do this, but it's start paying attention a little bit more to the east from this, because this is an accident waiting to happen. So what would be the pleasure of the council then? What action or none would we like to give direction to take on this? Just stay engaged with SACOG at this level, and what is their time frame to go forward? Do you have any?
I think they sent an email at the end of last week saying that they hope to get back to us in several weeks. I don't think it would be inappropriate at all to send a letter to Caltrans. I would defer that whom and what that letter says to Mr. Moody and Ms. Langley at this point. But
Okay.
I think if we could provide direction for them to say, hey, look, take a look at this intersection. What do we need? I don't know what the right engineer verbiage is at Caltrans, but I'm sure they do.
Okay. So is that the direction the council wants to go, is address a letter to Caltrans, focus more on please pay attention to El Margarita intersection?
I'm in favor of that.
Okay. Ms. Langley, do you have enough direction?
We do. Thank you.
All righty. Thank you. Okay, we're moving through this tonight. Agenda item 10 is the next one. Future agenda items. This is a chance for us to come up as a council with any items that we'd like to have on a future agenda. Usually I wait for and ask the council if they would have, but there's been some recent events that I think need to come before us in short order. This is not for debate. I'm just going to give you a real synopsis of where we're at. We've all been in receipt in the last 24 hours of an email from Habitat for Humanity. And we are already, it's concerning Merriment Village, and we are already in a contract with them to build that and everything through the funding mechanisms they had, which was Home Key. And they had gap funding that they were supposed to have worked on for the past year or so to secure so that everything can move forward. The letter yesterday that we all received, their solution was coming to the city and asking for an unsecured line of credit for $7.5 million. We are in a budget deficit. And so enough said there. We have a contract. So I am disengaged as far as wanting to put this on the agenda. But in light of this and the start deadline that was supposed to start by April of this year, I wanted to bring this forward to find out if my fellow council members felt like this needed to be brought forward on a future agenda, or if we need to operate just under the contract. So, Mr. Vice Mayor, what's your wishes on this? Okay. Mr. Kirchner? Mr. Pasquale. So we will not be bringing this forward. I think, Ms. Langley, that sends a loud message. We are under contract. Proceed forward with the contract. The second thing that I would like to have at a near meeting is, again, back to Habitat. We have the property of the old fire station that is adjacent to the Moose that we have been working with Habitat for multiple years, I think since going back to about 21. And again, the timeline has exhausted, and we have asked for a letter of withdrawal from Habitat so that we can just put this on the open market and sell it. And especially in a budget deficit, we need to bring that back into the coffers. I think we need to bring it back at a future meeting to look at our legal mechanisms if needed to obtain that letter of withdrawal for failure of executing their agreement they made many years ago. So, Vice Mayor, yes?
Point of clarification, would that be at the next meeting?
If we can have it together, we can do it at the next meeting. Okay? All right, Ms. Langley, could we bring that back for the next meeting?
And through the mayor, just for clarification, if they do provide a letter in the interim, I'm assuming you do not want to put it back on the agenda. Is that correct?
That would be my intent.
Okay, thank you.
Okay? So that was the two items I have. Is there anything else the council would like?
Through the mayor.
Sir.
Since we're on this topic, I am part of the ad hoc for Habitat, and I would like to bring back, we were scheduled for a meeting the day after the next board or council meeting. I would like to eliminate that and bring a comprehensive report from Habitat about their projects, how they are going about procuring their funds and such, and get a complete picture of what's going on and not this shell game that I keep seeing at times. And I would like to have that ad hoc meeting canceled and bring that back as an agenda item for them to present to the full board or for full council.
Okay. And would that be, if it possible, you want that at the next meeting or April's?
April.
First one in April? Okay, I'm seeing a yes. Mr. Kirchner? Ms. Langley, is that doable to have a full comprehensive report from Habitat on other projects and fundings and status of everything they've got going on in the city?
It may be possible. I don't know if they're going to be able to do that at the March 18th meeting. It might be at a later meeting.
Okay, he had mentioned April.
Yeah.
Beginning of April. Okay. Anything else?
Yeah, through the mayor.
Sir.
I would like to, we came together with our other local electeds this weekend at Buckeye, and a question came up in regards to the joint dispatch project.
Mm-hmm.
At a future meeting, no great urgency. It would just be nice to hear an update about where we're at with that project, the joint public safety dispatch.
All right, everybody good with that? Okay. Any timeline, Vice Mayor? Okay. At earliest convenience? Okay. Anything else from the council? This has been interesting. 3 of the 4 of us have got things, so. Mr. Kirchner, you got anything you'd like to add?
Good.
All right. Ms. Langley, you got anything you would like to add?
As a separate item, I would like to respectfully request to give Steve Smith an opportunity to speak really quick about, he wanted to show support for Gina and Robert. If he could have a moment to speak, please.
In a few minutes, I will defer some time to you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else?
I just want to say that, my second to last council meeting, and you're adding these items to the agenda. And I just say, I'm sorry, Robert. I'm glad you waited until after his contract was approved to do this, so.
The only response to that, ink is dry. We can handle this, right, Mr. Bendorf? All right, thank you. So, all right, if there's no other agenda items, then we will suspend the reports. And Mr. Smith, if you would like to go up and make your comments, we will allow you to do that this time.
Thank you very much, Honorable Mayor and council members. Steve Smith, County Administrator for Sutter County. Sorry I was late for the agenda items. One, I wanted to thank Diana for the years of great partnership. Just like we've had a great partnership with the city. Appreciate you all and wish her the best. And then also, I've gotten to work with both Gina and Robert for a number of years, and they're both great professionals, and I know you've already agreed that they'll be interim and working with the city, but I just look forward to working with them and just appreciate you supporting them and look forward to ongoing good collaboration. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for being here and saying kind words about our newest team members, so thank you. All right, we will get to our reports. This is your next to the last city manager's report.
Yes, it is. I don't have much to report other than we did, continuing in the vein of the budget discussions, we did have a revenue ad hoc meeting this morning. And if the vice mayor or Councilmember Kirchner wouldn't mind addressing the items, some of the items that we discussed, but we'll be bringing forward a lot of opportunities for various discussions in the coming months. So, thank you.
Vice Mayor or Councilmember, would you guys like to talk about the revenue ad hoc now or under your reports? Okay, all right. Well, then we will move right into council's reports. And actually, Councilmember Kirchner, that's yourself.
Right. Thank you, Mayor. So I've been a little bit MIA lately, but I would like to thank the folks that have covered for me, the Vice Mayor with transit and other responsibilities. And I also would like to take the opportunity to welcome our interim HR director and our interim city manager. Thank you for stepping up in this time. One of my new committees that I'm on is the school liaison committee, and something that was brought up at our last meeting was a little bit exciting. Those of you that know where Central Gaither School has been vacant for some time out on 113, and it's going to be utilized for, I guess the term would be, I don't want to say special needs, but these folks are the population that currently are having to be transported to Sacramento. And this is regionally, and so this is going to be a huge burden it's taken off of their families, that they can simply go and utilize this facility out in Tudor. So that is exciting. As the city manager mentioned, the vice mayor and staff and I got together today for our first revenue ad hoc meeting, and it was to discuss opportunities moving forward to look at revenue opportunities in our city, and I really wish I had those notes in front of me. One of which is a potential revenue measure in 26, but other opportunities are trying to entice other businesses to our community. And what else did we talk about, Mark? My brain's not working right now, so I got to apologize. I'm going to defer the rest of that to the vice mayor. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Councilmember Pasquale.
Thank you, Mayor. Mine will be short and sweet. It was at my Air Quality Control Board meeting. We elected our officers, and I was reappointed to the Budget and Policy Committee, and I had a great weekend with all the electeds and celebrating the 145th parade of the Buckeye. And with that, I'll conclude my report.
Thank you. Mr. Vice Mayor.
It was a bit busy this last couple of weeks. I'm on the Cap to Cap Public Safety Committee, and this is a group of professionals and electeds from all over the Sacramento region that will be heading to Washington, D.C. in a few months to lobby for things like infrastructure money for facilities, grant money, et cetera, for public safety. I'm also on the Cap to Cap Committee for Transportation, and obviously where roads and projects are, that we'll be doing the same thing there. At the SACOG meeting that I attended, and Mr. Moody mentioned this, there's a funding program that's starting, it should be starting this month. The County of Sutter, and I'm glad Steve's here, the County of Sutter is going to get roughly $2 million. And so Live Oak, Yuba City, and Sutter County need to get together to figure out how to put together projects for consideration of that $2 million. There's also $4 million at stake in a regional program that would have 4 counties, including Sutter, Yuba, are the primary ones there to put projects in for funding. So it's competitive, but there's been good success here in the past, and I think with our staffs getting together, they can put together good grants, and we can get some of that money that we pay in taxes back here into Sutter County, into Yuba City, and to Live Oak. Attended the Trauma Intervention Program Gala, where Dan Parno, our fire captain, was honored as one of their heroes with a heart. If you know Dan Parno, you know that guy has this very strong heart for serving the public, and his acceptance speech was extremely moving. But it was a good turnout for the very good organization that supports. Councilmember Pasquale mentioned the Buckeye. All of us went to the Buckeye hostess reception. I want to mention that in one of the most generous things I've ever seen from an elected official. Councilmember Pasquale purchased a painting. It was a one-off painting that was done in conjunction with the Buckeye Festival, and he donated it to the hostess. It was truly a memorable moment, and I thought, that was awesome. It was very meaningful, and I think everybody noted that. Then we participated in the Buckeye Parade, and I want to give thanks to the Hop Sing Society for their excellent Chinese dinner. We were all survived the dragon. It didn't fall on any of us. But thank you to Marysville, too. Very good hosts. Attended Bob Harlan's retirement. There's a guy that over the years has been a super partner for the city of Yuba City as well as the region. I made the comment, I remember during floods, et cetera, his voice and his demeanor on the radio, I'm sure helped people get through those very anxious moments. And I said the fair too, just because I could remember, eating a corn dog while I was listening to Bob tell me about the next event. But Bob's a great guy, and he's not leaving us. I attended the transit meeting for my friend here, Councilman Kirchner. There wasn't much really at the meeting. We saw a SACOG presentation on mobility zones. There are some things that happened in closed session, but I'm sure that Councilman Kirchner will be talking about those. I'm not at liberty to discuss those at this point, but they could have some ramifications to us over on this side of the river. Revenue ad hoc. The idea of this committee is to continue to explore methods of revenue for the city. So Mr. Moody, I think he coordinated with help from Ann Gillen and Diana and Deanna Pope, a pretty extensive list of opportunities. And today's meeting was really to learn a little bit more about all those different possibilities. We also came up with some ourselves. Wade mentioned, a revenue ad hoc committee. Obviously, that's something that as we continue to move forward for 2026, we're going to have discussions with the county as well in regards to, the viability of doing something that benefits both the city and the county. I think we've pretty much figured out that going together is probably a better route than going apart. But, that's yet to be determined as far as a revenue measure. But, there's no magic bullet in any of the things that we came up that's suddenly going to make, Yuba City flush again. It's just, we can nibble away at a lot of stuff, but just the way that inflation has gone, I think we all need to look forward to, probably some more price pressures due to some of the things that are going on, nationally and internationally right now. So it's important for us, for Wade and I to be working with staff, and I'm sure, Robert, you're going to be deeply embedded in that as well, and look forward to any ideas you have as well. So we're just on this journey to begin. Yeah, obviously, I think we have some things that make some sense, low-hanging fruit, if you will. But there's also some very substantive talks that are going to have to occur. So with that, I will conclude my comments.
All right, thank you, sir. Wrap up mine real quick here. I was at the RWMA. One of the large takeaways there is the RWMA now has a permanent home. They are located on the 4th floor of the Hart Building in Marysville. So the furniture was delivered last week, and that's where you will find the RWMA staff. Again, attended Bob Harlan's retirement. Immediately following that, Bob has always had the heartbeat of this community. So it's, not really bitter because he's not going anywhere. He's just shifting what he's doing. So, Bob will still be around, but we wish him a lot of happy memories with travels if his wife can get him on the road, because that seems to be a problem. The Buckeye, what an honor and what a tradition. We were honored to be the presenting of all the jurisdictions this year. So it was a humbling honor for this council to present the joint proclamation to recognize the Hop Sing and to recognize the Chinese community in Marysville, because it's not just a Marysville thing, it really serves Yuba Sutter area. And so it was a great event, and they really stepped it up this year. They were big before COVID hit, then it kind of went down, and then it came back really as, I think they made a statement this year. It was incredible. So, and then the guy to my left over here stole the show, so, but you already heard about that, but that was a class act. Very, very much a class act. The other thing that we've been working on is the outreach ad hoc, which is Councilmember Pasquale and myself continue to work on keeping the public informed. We've already released a couple of videos trying to keep them short and sweet, just on point with what we're hearing in the public. We're working on the next one, and they will continue to flow out. And then along those lines, did 2 interviews with 93Q. Well, one in my normal slot that's not as mayor, and but we talked about city stuff. And then I had Ms. Langley and Interim Chief Runyon with me for the other one. And we have to keep our public informed as far as what's going on, the fact that we are doing everything we can to keep this community safe through the changes that we're faced with. And so we will continue that message going forward. So busy weeks coming ahead for myself, so stay tuned for next time. Anything else to come before us, gentlemen? Hearing nothing, we will stand adjourned.